All right, so today it is Monday, the 4th of May. It is 9:40 in the morning, and this is day 47 of the coronavirus. And for the last 46 days, I've been in a virtual house arrest, the so-called Confined Movement Order. So you are not allowed to go to work, and as of today you are actually allowed to go to work under certain constrictions. So I think it's called the CMCO, Constricted Movement Control Order, and that means that you cannot sit too closely at work. They encourage people to work from home. You have to take temperature, and at work 3 times a day, I think. You have to, like the public facilities, like a toilet, has to be cleaned or sanitized regularly. All these kind of things. Also, as of today, you can once again visit restaurants, but again, you have to sit 2 meters apart between tables, and the restaurant has to take down the name and number of every dine-in guest. So if someone has COVID, they can do contact tracing and let people know that they have to self-quarantine. So for this reason, I don't think I'll be going to any restaurants. I don't want to take that risk of going to self-quarantine, because as we know, there's actually a lot of COVID cases. It spreads very easily. A lot of people have it even though they don't really show the symptoms. So I think there's a very high risk of meeting a COVID patient or person with COVID. So yeah, it'll be interesting. The roads are still quite empty compared to normal, that's for sure, but there's definitely more activity. So society is slowly getting back to normal, and this step-by-step approach is the right way to go. The schools of Malaysia are still closed. For parents who have had to teach their kids at home are still in that predicament. I saw a funny tweet or something, and the tweet went something like, "Now we know whether there's a hell on earth. There is. It's called homeschooling." So I think it's been quite tough on many parents to look after their own kids while at the same time trying to work from home. It's essentially 2 full-time jobs, especially if the kids are a bit younger. So on the plus side, it will give more respect for teachers. Oh, those were quite painful, those branches. They have thorns. I guess they've been allowed to grow over the road over this period. So yeah, more respect to teachers. So, and other essential workers who have actually kept this society running while at the risk of getting infected with the virus. So for example, I haven't seen any food shortage during this 46-day period. The supermarket has been very well stocked. The garbage collection worked as it always did. There's been, of course, electricity and water and many other things that just worked as normal because people, the essential workers, have made it so. So, on the contrary, that means that someone like me is actually not an essential worker, and that should give some pause for thought. Always good to have a bit of a humility. So it's a sunny day with blue sky, and no wonder, because there's been so much less pollution from traffic. Pollution levels have really dropped in a lot of cities. So I was recently in a debate or in an online discussion or seminar on what environmental effects would come out of this pandemic. And while I agree that there has been some very good environmental effects that people greatly appreciate, like clean air and also clean rivers, because factories have been shut down. I also took the view that now that we are starting to opening up society, I believe the key focus will be to get the wheels spinning again, literally speaking, get the economy up and running, and the environmental concerns will only play second fiddle, second priority. It's all about the economy now. But of course, there will be some lasting effects, like the fact that we have realized that we can work quite efficiently online. So join meetings on Skype or on Zoom and not having to travel to go to meetings. So I think that will last or have some lasting effect. Of course, meetings will still be called, but many people will suggest that they just join online, and now it's maybe more accepted because this is what we've all been doing for 1.5 months. Besides, for the next year or so until we get the vaccine, we will have to observe social distancing. So it actually makes sense not to have all these meetings where everyone is in close proximity. So, getting back to my presentation about the environmental lessons, I basically based my talk on a very nice cartoon that was brought by The Economist about 2 weeks ago, and it showed two boxers more or less the same size and strength battling it out in the boxing ring, and one had the head of the globe, the Earth, so that's basically planet Earth, and the other one had a head that looked like the coronavirus. So basically depicting the planet Earth could be in a fight, in a boxing match with coronavirus. And I asked the question, and I had cropped this cartoon, so you only saw these two fighters. And I asked the question, so when you go into a boxing match, did you, before going into a boxing match, have we actually studied the opponent? And my answer was yes, we had studied a virus pandemic. In fact, various sort of simulation studies were done that actually came very close to what happens with a virus infection spreading globally, and most countries being very ill prepared with lots of death and lack of ventilators and all that. So my second question was, okay, so we have studied the opponent, but did we prepare for the fight? And the answer is no. We were not prepared for this viral, or this virus infection pandemic, even though it played out exactly as predicted. So that was a bit disheartening, and if you were a boxing trainer, you would have been fired because you didn't prepare your boxer for the fight. So that's where we are. But then I also asked the question, as a boxing trainer, and the boxing trainer of course are the world leaders, the ones that are coaching Earth, or taking care of Earth. So as a trainer, you will of course have to ask, so what other boxing matches are coming up? And this is where I go to the next slide. And basically sort of showing the rest of the cartoon, because there is another fight coming up, and suddenly in the background you see another boxer standing outside the boxing ring waiting for his turn, and this fighter is twice as big as the fighters inside the boxing ring, and he looks very strong and angry and ready to fight. And on the shorts of this very strong boxer is printed his name, and his name is climate change. So then I proceed to ask, so did we study this fighter? The answer is yes. We have studied climate change for decades. You could argue even more than 100 years, when the global warming was discovered and predicted. But certainly for the last 40, 50 years, where oil companies like Exxon, they understood very well that climate change was real, and even recommended internally that their business was destroying the earth. But this was kept secret, and they decided instead to sow doubt about climate change. But that aside, so we have studied climate change, we have known about it for decades. So the answer is yes, we have studied the opponent. But on the question of whether we have prepared for the fight, the question is no, or the answer is no. Because once again, we are completely not prepared to avoid climate change or the effects it will have. So what is the consequences? What is this big knockout that we are going to face? Well, my first slide after that basically says the cost of not preparing. And first I address the COVID-19. So I show the deaths per million of people on a graph starting back in February or March, and comparing the United States and South Korea. And actually these two countries had the first case of coronavirus in the same day. And South Korea was one of those few countries that was really prepared for this. So they took swift action. They managed to trace down the people who had the virus, isolate them, and limit the spread tremendously. Whereas the US has had a very poor response, with the President of the United States calling this virus a hoax, something that will magically disappear, that the numbers will go down to zero, all these kind of things. All the while he was being warned about this pandemic. But for about 2 months didn't do much. So the graph shows the result very clearly. The South Korea death rate has been virtually zero, whereas the death rate in the US has increased a lot and keeps increasing, and is, I can't remember exactly, but let's say 100 times higher up than South Korea. So this shows the cost of not preparing. And in terms of economic terms, South Korea didn't have to lock down the society, so they didn't have to face this big economic consequences than as the US and other countries, including Malaysia, have had from closing down society in the sort of various stages of lockdown. So then I asked the question, what is the cost of not preparing when it comes to climate change? And here I show two bar charts, one with COVID-19 and the global population, which is about 7 billion, and then I show the number of deaths in a worst case scenario. So since the death rate of the coronavirus seems to be about 0.5% of the population, so if 0.5% of the population dies, then it's about 35 million people, which is a big number for sure. But in terms of the global population, is just a small little 0.5% slice on top of that population bar of 7 billion people. But when it comes to climate change, and again assuming the Earth's population is 7 billion, you see that the population on Earth is likely to drop by more than half, so down to about 3 billion people. So a huge effect. And compare that to the little attention climate change gets comparatively to the coronavirus at the moment. So we should be talking about coronavirus, but we should be talking 100 times more and be 100 times more serious about addressing climate change drastically. So on my final slide, I basically summarize the lessons from this COVID-19 pandemic, and my first conclusion is that there's a high cost of not preparing for future crises, as we've seen with the COVID-19. And my second conclusion is the best way forward is to heed sound scientific advice. So instead of fantasizing that the virus will go away like magic or some other completely unfounded theories, let's listen to the scientists, let's listen to the warnings, and that really seems to be the best way forward, as South Korea was a good example of. The third conclusion is a positive one, where I basically state that the COVID-19 global pandemic, where about half of the world's population is some kind of lockdown, has shown that we can act globally to tackle a crisis. In a very short time, our lives went upside down. People stayed home, didn't go to work, didn't go to school, and so on. So if we put our mind to it, and if the politicians put their mind to it, we can actually change society drastically and on short notice. So this brings us to my last point. And here I sort of recap that the age we live in now, many people call it the information age, because we have so much information at our fingertips. So many studies, so much high quality research. Yeah, there's an abundance of information, and people can also access the information through the internet. So now that we have entered this information age, I propose we enter a new age, which I call the act on information age. So let's take action when the scientists warn us about pandemics. Let's take action when the scientists warn us about the irreversible climate change that will take place in 10 years. And even if we stop all emissions by then, it's too late. It's irreversible. It's running away on its own course. So that was my final message of the lessons of this pandemic. Thanks. All right. So everyone has to register.
Yeah.
All right, good idea. A lot of people coming to work today. Ooh, I might have a bit of fever though. I mean, it might be a bit hot from this cycling. I'm still below 37. Fantastic. Okay, good. I right?
Yeah.
Okay.